Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Mic check, 1 2 1 2. All right. Doing a little more mobile, a little more flexibility here. I like this. All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is Mic Drop Aftermath episode 2, and I have been in the process of trying to get my life ready for the beginning of next school year. So over the summer, trying to move your life from one place to another, it can be a little difficult. So I wasn't able to get to Mic Drop yesterday. However, I'm beginning to formalize in my mind what I think I'm going to do regarding a more permanent schedule. And routinely in the past, if you've ever been with me in anything I've done extracurricularly, we've done it generally right after school ends, because that's a lot of the time when the kids will have an activity and they'll be able to do it right after school before they got to get home for dinner, stuff like that. The status of my graduates now are all extremely hardworking, underpaid, and extremely tired. And I support you. So to that end, I think I'm going to try and do maybe an every other day mic drop and try to make it more of maybe closer to an hour than a half hour, because I think the discussions that are going to come out of this are going to, they're going to grow. Maybe in intensity, maybe in frequency, maybe in involvement, but definitely in advocacy. And I don't ever want to limit anybody's ability to share their truth in whatever way that they feel that they need to, and especially if they're looking for support. So that's kind of the direction it's going to head for a little bit, and I'm going to be adjusting it all summer long. I'm going to try to get what I feel is the best routine in place going into a new school year, so that's something that I can stick to, depending on everything else that's going on. But today, we're going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to call it the unspoken truth. And there's a lot of people that have heard about the unspoken truth before, and it's more about what's not said in comparison to what is said. And I'll give you a perfect example of this that just happened to me. So in my attempts, obviously, to leave one organization into another, they're going to have to talk to each other at some point from a human resources standpoint. And the director of the human resources at Middlebury Community Schools is by the name of Dana Clark. Now, here's my truth in my experience working with Dana Clark. And the reason why I'm sharing this, the reason why this is today's topic, is because when you have a director of human resources that is incapable of being a director of human resources, things like middle school teachers shooting themselves in the parking lot happen. And so in the attempts of going through and rooting out all of the corruption, I'm not taking any, but like no one's immune, not even me. I would go after my own corruption in a heartbeat, if I had any. But most of the people I surround myself with tell me if there's anything in my life that could even appear that way, and I'm usually pretty quick to be able to explain it. They're like, oh yeah, that makes more sense, just because I'm different, But in my experience with Dana Clark, here's what transpired. During the last 2 years that I worked at Middlebury Community Schools, I was fighting for my life professionally, similar to how John Homan wrote in his email to everyone that there were certain people in the building that were not treating him human. There were certain people in the building that wouldn't let him do the job he was hired to do. He never felt supported. He never felt encouraged. In fact, he felt admonished, warned, belittled. All the things that I was feeling at the same time a couple of years ago with me. Now, in case you all are wondering, did I do anything while I was in there to actually try and stop the corruption? The answer is yes. That's why I became so close to death. I would not give up in trying to root out the corruption and the toxicity and protecting the kids that no one else would, to the point of my own, like, almost physical death, and definitely a professional death, because I've never been the same since I've been treated that way. Now, when I originally reached out to, this goes probably back after my third year of working there with Stephanie Preem. I went and I talked to Mr. Wood at the time, who I thought was my ally, trustworthy, and I believed almost everything he said. When I asked him what the process was for filing a grievance against someone that I work with. And at the time, Mr. Wood explained it to me that it's like, oh, well, I mean, what would happen if you filed a grievance is they would tell you to come talk to your supervisor anyway to try and resolve it that way. And since you and I are here talking right now, it kind of seems redundant. In my naivete, that makes perfect sense. He has a way with words that make perfect sense, that you feel like are believable. I can tell you this right now. I have no idea what the actual process is for filing a grievance at the people that I work with while I was there, because I was talked out of it nearly every time. And that's on me. That's on me for believing that. But I'm a very trustworthy person, and I always choose to try to believe in the best in someone, a lot of the time to my own detriment. And a lot of my former graduates have reached out and kind of said, like, are you still Malahan? Like, I know you're Malahan, but are you like Malahan? And I love my kids to death, because they've seen me grow and evolve as a counselor over the better part of a decade. My advocacy self is still 100%. My peppy cheer self, the spirit is there. The physicality I could use a little bit more conditioning with, because it's been a while since I've led and danced like an idiot in front of a bunch of kids playing instruments. Regardless of that, I am still myself. And I'm finding new ways to deal with that in ways that my previous self didn't survive. One of those was this. And what had happened towards the end of the last year that I was working there, the toxicity had become so horrible in working in the front office of Northridge High School that I had to leave. Like, I felt, because I was so close to Kelsey Tote, and every single day she made it a point to try to make me feel less than human. When you're empathic, you feel that animosity as if it's your own, and it was right next door to me. And it was right next door to me with Steph Preem too. So it's like, wonderful. Can't escape this. So I decided to escape it, and I did so I could serve my kids better instead of having to deal with that. Since no one was willing to come back and do any type of mediation, any type of management whatsoever to try and help the toxicity that was going on amongst my team, I did the only thing I knew how to do, which was do what was best for kids. And I took myself away from that toxicity, and I put myself at first in the library back conference room, because it had a check-in and check-out system, and we were still following COVID protocols and that kind of stuff, so it made a lot of sense. And then afterwards, I was able to move into an empty classroom, and I was asked, which classroom would you like if you had to pick a classroom to work out of? And, they were offering me, the ends of the hallways, where their classrooms just aren't being used yet, that kind of thing. And I'm like, do I have a choice? They said, yeah, any empty classroom. I said, good, give me the classroom right next to David Keefe, the one that's the counseling classroom. That's right in the center of the building, and really where all of the children cross each other every single day, all the time. Put me right in the middle of it. And that's what I got. And I was able to do that for the remainder of that semester while I was still slowly dying inside from the toxicity that was all around me. Did they leave me alone when I went there? No, the toxicity followed. The toxicity followed so much that they started sending, I'm going to quote them as minions, to check on what it is that I was doing so they could report back to the other counselors. Like, leaving me alone to do my job for what's best for kids wasn't enough. You have to, now because I can't tolerate your toxicity and I've moved away, now you look bad. So now you have to check on me? Okay. So I reached out to Mr. Wood at the time, and he said, yeah, you can be in that classroom. That's fine. And we're going to go ahead and make that happen. But the toxicity didn't stop. So I went back and I talked to Mr. Wood, and I said, it's not stopping. Like something needs to happen. And remind you, for the last 2 or 3 years, I had been begging for mediation through my team, begging. Like I could tolerate the disrespect for 5 years. And then I was like, okay, look, it's getting to the point now where having to deal with the childish adults that I work with is impeding my ability to effectively work with the children I actually work with. So we need to move these adults into timeout so they can learn how to act like adults so that I can go and do my job. The problem with adults that don't know how to act like adults is they'll try to convince everyone else that you're the child. You're the immature one. You are the problem. And if there's anything that could describe the mentality of Middlebury Community Schools more than anything else, that would be it. Collective brainwashing, collective gaslighting. If it doesn't look good to them, they'll try to make you into it, either verbally, physically, emotionally. They'll try to destroy you and build you up the way that they want you to look. And when you're done serving the purposes of what it is that they want, they will make your life so miserable that you'll want to quit working there, as opposed to having to go through the process of getting fired, because that causes them too much paperwork. And that is an actual direct quote from Mr. Wood. So if you want to quote me on that one, that's fine. He said it's much easier to get someone to want to quit than it is to fire them, because it takes years. You got to put them on an improvement plan, and then you got to show them that they're not actually doing what it is, and it's still going to take a couple years after that. And then the MTA gets involved, and they want to do. And it was just like, eye rolling over a process that is our safety net as educators, like the place we're supposed to be able to go to be like, help. The other people in the building that are supposed to be acting like adults are not acting like adults. You're the head adult in the building. Can you help? The answer was no. The answer was no for so long that Mr. Wood took himself off of my supervision at that point, and he was replaced with the director of human resources and Jamie Nathaniel, the assistant principal. And let me tell you this about Jamie Nathaniel. I've said a lot about the administration at Middlebury Community Schools, and Jamie Nathaniel, in my mind, is still, and not to say anything against her marriage at all, but she's still Jamie Schneider in my mind. And that's more of, she's still the teacher that is compassionate and loving to the kids than the administration that has been toxic to me for so long. She was a voice of reason during that time. She was a voice of compassion. She actually helped me get all of the belongings out of not my office, the office that all of the adult counselors took all my personal valuable belongings and threw them into a corner, some of which were ruined. She allowed me to come back in the building during spring break and get all my stuff so that I can get out. And I have respect for Jamie Nathaniel. I do. I'm not going to comment, at least personally from me, on whether she's been involved in the corruption or not. What I can tell you is she's a real smart cookie. And she does love children. I've seen it in action. So those two were assigned to me at that point to be my supervision. Now, I was asking and begging, please, can we have mediation? Please, can we sit down as adults with the human resources director and have a conversation about how I feel gaslighted, I feel manipulated, I feel like I'm constantly being attacked all the time. Like, why can't we have that conversation? I've been asking for it for 3 years. And here's a direct quote from the director of human resources at Middlebury Community Schools actively. She said to me to my face, Michael, we've talked to the other counselors about what you're asking, and they don't want to do it. And I looked at her for a second and I said, go on? Like, please tell me there's more. No, there was no more. It was, we're not going to do it because they don't want to. Okay, so what you are telling me, Director of Human Resources, is that an employee in your school system is getting bullied by other members of their team, and because all of them are collectively agreeing that I'm the problem, which a lot of bullies like to do when they're trying to, pick on one person. We're not going to be able to have a conversation because they don't want to? That sounds illegal. That sounds very much unethical, because what does that say about how you care about me as an employee? You don't. You care about them as employees, but you don't care about me, and you can't care about both. And so I kept asking and asking, when is this going to happen? Well, it's not, because they don't want to. That was when I had finished losing all of my respect for the director of human resources at Middlebury Entitlement Schools. So Dana Clark, this one's for you. Thank you for doing your job and signing the one document I actually needed you to sign so that the other people that I'm going to work with know that I did work for you guys for a period of time. Thank you very, very much for being so thorough and explanatory in what it was going to mean for me to take leave 3430. You did an excellent job of making sure that I knew every single repercussion that would give me. Thank you, Dana, for such great work. A truer example of human resources leadership I have never seen. A pinnacle of awesomeness for what it is that you say that you do. Now, I will add one little asterisk to that. If you were doing your job directing the human resources that were available in Middlebury Community Schools, maybe John Homan would still be alive. Because I utilized every single resource that you offered me when I felt that way, and none of it worked, and none of it helped. In fact, you know what needed to happen? You needed to talk to the people, the snakes that were poisoning me, because you can give me antidotes every day that you want, but if I'm walking into the same building getting struck by venom every single day, it's not going to resolve itself. So I've lost all the respect that I had for you. And I'm going to tell you guys something too. I actually emailed to her in the midst of all this when I knew that she was going to have to send stuff my way. Or to another place. I said, hey, I just want you to know, and I'll even post this email out there somewhere if anybody wants to see it. I just say, I want you to know that I know that my advocacy is putting a lot of strain and work on your lap as a director of human resources. For that part only of my advocacy, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that this is creating a lot more work that you have to do. Because I don't believe any human resources director is ever without work to do. But to the extent that I'm saying, you don't have to do the work or none of that, no, I'm sorry that there's more work for you to do. But if you've been doing the job that you should have been doing up to this point, there probably wouldn't be more work for you to do, which is very common across Middlebury Entitlement Schools, because the people who say that they're going to grow and evolve and do different things, they talk a lot, but they don't back it up with actions. And if they do, it would be surprising to me, for sure, especially in a longevity sense. It is well within the political snake poison that goes on through that school system to act like they've grown, matured, and changed until the eyes are off of them, and they'll go right back to the way they were doing things. In fact, right now, Middlebury Community Schools School Board is waiting and praying that I stop talking, so that the time that the summer usually is where people can focus on their families and forget everything work-related. Nobody's paying attention to this stuff. They're hoping that you are so exhausted at the end of a school year that you are grateful so much for the weeks that you get off, and it's never long enough until you're ready, until you have to go back to work. So you don't even have time. You're not even given time to really process through a lot of the stuff professionally that you would want to, because if you did, it would take time out of your family life. And for a school corporation who claims to focus on families and communities and growing, that's not really helpful for families or communities or growing. And that's a mic truth. And if you want to debate it, you come right on here and talk to me about it. Or you can stay scared, hide behind your little walls in the community office. And you can keep banning me from going there. That's completely fine. But this isn't going to stop. And so you can wish all you want that this is going to go away. And it's not. In fact, what I would hope happens is, as I continue to do this and more people continue to pour their stories out here and we talk about it, there's going to be video after video after video after video of evidentiary testimony from community members of Middlebury, former graduates of Middlebury Community Schools, and current staff or parents of Middlebury Community Schools teachers or students that are there. I want to give every single one of them a forum to speak their truth safely. The problem is there's so much fear from the administration on them controlling your collective destiny on what you're going to do. Like, we can ruin your career and say all this and do all that. They can't do to you. It's fear tactics. Because the minute they do something unjust or unethical to you, all you got to do is, well, I would say call the human resources director, but nah, I'm probably not going to recommend that anymore. They're bought. I'm probably going to say contact your own personal attorney, or someone that you would believe has your best interest at heart from a legal standpoint. And that can be a friend, that can be, anyone that you trust. I'm going to recommend that you don't trust anyone that works for the community schools, not for Middlebury, just because we don't know who's bought and who isn't. And the kids are telling us right now, based on the teachers that you can look at and see, there's some issues going on. So we're going to have these kind of these little episodes. It's AfterMath episode 2. We're going to have episode after episode of the unbiased truth shared at Middlebury Community Schools for the children of Middlebury. That's how a school board meeting should probably run. And I don't know, because I've never been a school board member before. But it seems like it would probably make a lot more sense if the community that you claim to serve felt like they can act like a community and talk with you like a community, instead of indentured servitude, or you have no voice because you don't have the right look, the right sound, or the right hairstyle or color, or the right paycheck, or the right person above who knows somebody else, whatever political savvies and connections you would ascribe to. So it makes me even more worried. Like, if you're asking why I'm doing this one, it makes me even more concerned that with someone who is directing the human resources department of a corrupt school corporation, that more John Homans are going to happen. More Mike Mollahans almost happen. And to all the people that are working at Middlebury Community Schools right now that are an almost, I pray for you every day of my life. I lift you up so high because the kids are there with you. Like, you're right there. And in those moments, your heart and your mind and your decision-making process needs to be more than just obey and robotic following of orders for your school corporation. You need to be able to feel empathy. You need to be able to feel compassion. You need to be able to think critically in the moment. You don't always have to think about following school policy the right way that it should. You want an example why? I'll tell you an example why. The kid came into my office right now and said, Mollahan, if you do not play this song from Black Sabbath with all the cuss words and all this stuff right now as loud as you possibly can on your speaker, I'm going to go ahead and push this button and blow the bomb on my chest. Okay? Now, if a kid told me that and I had to follow school policy, there's no way I would have been able to play anything that school inappropriate on my computer. And you know what would have happened? Boom. So in catastrophe level settings, in the moment, when you have to make those critical decisions, I don't want a robot. I want a human who can think for themselves, who can actually make decisions in that moment. That's what trust is. And that's what you should have for your employees that I don't think that you do have. Hi, Allie. We got a truth sharing here for a former graduate, and she is regarding Mr. Mayhorter. She said that my truth is that Mr. Mayhorter told me, because he couldn't see my medical issue, that it wasn't there. I have a heart condition where my heart rate speeds up, and was in an episode one day and not allowed to. I'm going to go ahead and assume that she's going to she wasn't able to address that. Allie, I hear you. Like, I can say from my personal experience as well, that doesn't surprise me from staff at Middlebury Community Schools. Not allowed to leave class to get the medical attention because he couldn't see the problem. After that day, he continued to make comments every day I was in his class in front of everyone that I just didn't want to. Okay, so not only do we have a teacher here that has looked at someone with a legitimate medical issue, and I've actually seen Ms. Drummond's medical file myself. She came to talk with me a few times while I was working there, and I spoke with Denise Balmer at the time, the nurse, on how best to kind of, for me, I never feel like I'm enough. When there's so many awesome adult buildings or adult minds and hearts that are working in a building for kids, I know what I'm good at. I know what I excel in, but I'm not always the complete answer. So I try to bring as many advisors as I can, one of them being the nurse. And so this is an example of a teacher who has decided to blatantly ignore the kid's medical file. And then on top of that, here'd be my guess on this one, Allie, and you can tell me if you would feel either similarly to this or maybe not. It would seem to me that once Mr. Mayhorter confirmed that indeed you did have a medical issue, he felt so embarrassed about calling you out on it at that point that he had to cover his tracks and try to make it into a joke for the rest of your life. Which he'd probably say something in front of class like, oh, are you going to really participate this time or not? I've heard of math teachers that do the same thing. These are all personal experiences from me of things that I've actually heard that I can confirm. So if you have a teacher who's not only ignoring your legitimate medical need, but also making you feel bad because you have it, and those are the teachers that you currently still have working at the schools, I can tell you that sounds very, very similar to how I was treated as an employee. And the fact that they are so similar is disturbing to me because it means that community schools thinks that they can treat whoever the heck they want, however the heck they want, because they can. And I think that needs to stop. Honestly, I think people need to be held accountable for what it is that they're doing or not doing. And what's been interesting lately is I danced around this topic for a little bit, but I'm going to be controversial because I am controversy apparently walking around. I don't believe in the school board and the school systems enough at Middlebury Community Schools to say that the children are safe there. And because of that, I would want to empower the children to make sure that they felt safe while they were there, since the adults act like this. And there's been a lot of talk about whether or not you are allowed to film anything going on your phone in class. I'm pretty sure the school board is going to tell you that is no. I'm pretty sure that most state and local governments are going to try and say that that's illegal and that you shouldn't do that. They may even have laws that have passed. I don't know, and I don't care anymore because I'm not going back to Indiana to follow those laws. I'm done with Indiana for now. My heart, my kids, there's still a huge chunk of me that is still in Indiana. And that will never, ever go away. But for me personally, I would be very, very thankful if I never had to live in Indiana again. I just don't like corn. I'm just not a fan. I mean, I don't like, stepping at a stoplight and driving 20 miles in one direction and the scenery doesn't change. It just gets me after a while. I think maybe I'm more of a city guy. It's all right. But if the teachers can treat the kids like this and the administration can treat their employees like this, who is holding who accountable? Where is the Middlebury Teachers Association in this? I can tell you where the Middlebury Teachers Association is in this. Look at the members. Look at who runs it. And come up with your own conclusions and your own truths on why they may or may not be as involved as they need to be. And for those of you guys that don't know what the MTA is, that's the Middlebury Teachers Association. They're supposed to be the governing body of the actual teacher voice, the union, so that if teachers are getting bullied, they have defense. Well, what if the Middlebury Teachers Association is made up mostly by the people that like things to stay the same in Middlebury? I'm not saying that is the case. I'm saying if that is the case, you're not going to see a lot of change. You're not going to see a lot of growth. You're not going to witness a lot of encouragement. In fact, what you may hear, and more often than not probably have heard, is discouragement. That's what gaslighting looks like. Oh, yeah, you feel that way. I'm sure you do. But is it really that way? Or could it be that you have a problem somehow? That's how gaslighting looks every single time. Now, if I actually thought the people that were trying to gaslight me cared about if I actually had a problem inside of me, I probably would explore it with them. But after years of knowing that they're just using it as a manipulation tool, nope. You no longer get to speak truth into my life. Go away. Shoo, be gone. If the children that are in the classes of Middlebury Community Schools are witnessing things that they deem unethical or illegal, I would pray that you record it. And if you want it shown live anywhere, send it to me. I'll throw it up on Mic Drop. I'll be like, here's a recording of actual Middlebury Community Schools entitlement going on. And I'll just broadcast it. And I won't say anything on it. I won't do even any commentary. I will leave it for y'all's purview, because the whole point of this is that you can see what is not being seen. You could feel what is not being felt by everyone else. You could hear what's not allowed to be spoken. And you are able then to come up with your own conclusions on what should be done. It's the scariest thing in the world for an establishment that's been corrupt. They want to keep every single one of the people underneath them divided, knowing full well that if they ever agreed on anything, they could oust the corruption like that in a day. And I wish we had people in the community of Middlebury that were brave enough to do that. And I do believe that there are people in Middlebury community that are brave enough to stand up and do that. But I also think too, you're going to be fighting Everest. 85% of, I keep using that number, but I believe 85% of Middlebury community schools. And now I'm not sure how much goes into the actual corporations and businesses that pour money into Middlebury community schools, because we all know that with money usually comes expectations. They're not called donation. They're called donations on paper, but behind the scenes they mark out that little first part and put exp, so it becomes expectations instead. I'd be curious to see how much of the corruption that filters into the schools is actually filtered into from people outside of the schools that want the things coming out of those schools to remain the same. Alexa, off. Thank you for the reminder. I've set Alexa to help me remind when I'm getting a little close to that 30-minute mark, and it went right off at 32 minutes, which is actually pretty good. And I'm kind of feeling it out a little bit, because this is where my episodes would usually cut off. But if the conversation that we're having is I don't know, if it's not ready to end, if it just doesn't feel right, like it's ready to end, I'm okay keeping it going. For the purposes of this one, I feel like we've already started a really great discussion, both from me and my personal experience being handled by an incompetent human resources director. And you've got an example from a former graduate who was treated almost identically the way that I was by the other members of my team. And I say that, Allie, because I went to Mr. Wood at some point and I told him that I'm having suicidal thoughts, and the only time I have them is coming into work next to these people. When I'm with the children, like, it's non-existent. You put me with the people that I'm there to serve, you put me there and allow me to do my job, and I don't have those problems, which is very similar to if you actually read through John Homan's email. He said, if these people just let me do my job, if they would let me, actually help the kids instead of help the kids look like what they want them to look like. That's written all throughout what he said. He didn't really take it that seriously. Or if he did, it wasn't enough to actually do anything to help try to save my life at that point. And that really broke my heart, because up to that point, he'd been kind of a father figure to me. And I have I'm going to tell you this right now, since we're kind of sharing a little bit about this. These are going to come out in Mike's drops earlier on, but I've had 3 pretty strong father figures in my life. Okay. One of them, God, the Father, the big guy. My earthly father, Larry Dale Mullihan Jr., and Drew Wood, who has been a professional mentor and a father figure to me ever since I got into school counseling. My earthly father is a fantastic man who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. He and I are very different men. I am an empath. He is a businessman. And for those of you that work in business, you can understand why that might be a little bit funny and a little bit off-putting. But my father is one of the best logical minds I've ever talked with. And the way in which he loves his family is very protective. I wasn't allowed to grow into the me that I could have probably been if my father had understood a little bit more about empathy But at the same time, too, my dad was 19 years old with my mom when he had me. They just graduated high school. The fact that he didn't have a bunch of Freud books on how to be the best parent at that point, he gets a little bit of grace, especially when the man used to work 80 hours a week and I get to see him on a Wednesday just so that we could have food on the table. And right now, a lot of my graduates are feeling that exact same pull, that same push, that same weight. Like the world is not cut out for you guys to thrive right now. And I'm telling you, you're right. When I was in my 20s, it looked nothing like how you guys are in your 20s. Like the world was a different place. There was no pandemic. Like the cost of living was, and eventually I'm going to start talking like this in the mic drops in about 40 years, back when the internet was still free. And if I get to that point and I'm still doing mic drops and I can still have a voice, even if it sounds like that, bruh, you better believe I'm still going to be advocating well into my 90s. But I as much as I pray for the kids at Middlebury Community Schools, you have to know too that my heart right now has gone with the last decade of graduates. And those are my people. Those are my kids. Those are my support right now in my advocacy, and it's reciprocal support. I'm not leaning on them. I came here to speak my truth, and they showed up right behind me. They're like, yeah. And then I said, you guys have truths you want to share too? And they're all like, yeah. So I stand behind them. Sometimes I stand in front of them with a megaphone because it's scary to stand up to things that are bigger and bullying you. Good news, I'm about 350, and I don't look and I carry it pretty well. So I can stand my ground if I have to. And I will always do it for kids more than I will myself. The fact that the kids are doing it for me now is still, it gets me a little bit getting used to. But what I want to say about the corruption that continues to permeate Middlebury entitlement schools, it's not one teacher. It's not one John Homan experience. It's not one Mike Mollahan experience. It's not one experience from, what happened with the bus driver before the whole John Homan thing. It's look at all of them that have happened. Look at the corruption from Robbie Goodman and the cheerleading stuff, and then all of this that's transpired, and you see a pattern of corrupt behavior. And they don't want you to put those pieces together, which is why they don't talk about them at the school board meetings. If they continue to acknowledge that it exists, that means that, and they haven't done anything with it, then it makes them look like they're incapable of doing their job. So if you guys are curious to go into the school board meetings at any time and you get 3 minutes and you don't know what to say, I'll give you something to say. And it'll only take 15 seconds and you can go sit back down and you can say it was from me. Put your name on the yellow paper, walk right up there and say, okay, we have someone that we're going to talk. Let's hear from this person. Person stands up. Hello, I'm this and I live from here. Here's a question from Mr. Mollahan. When are you going to stop hiding behind what you think is ethical and deal with the quote unquote inappropriate things that are killing the staff members of your corporation? Question mark. And if they don't want to, they'll tell you. They'll say, we're not going to hear any more about that tonight. And if you have written on this yellow piece of paper that you want to come up and say that thing, we are no longer going to allow it at this point. Do it. Guarantee you Pam Kaiser's in the corner watching and recording the whole thing. And I would love to see Middlebury Community Schools in action, trying to shut up half a dozen, maybe 2 dozen people that just want to show up and ask the same question. I'd love to see that. I'd do it myself. I would lead the charge. But I'm trying to not get arrested because there are children in the future that need me not in jail to help them currently. So I've actually thought, too, a little bit about giving advocacy pieces. And I'd be curious to see what you guys would think about what that would look like, because everybody's scared to go in and talk to Middlebury Community Schools. Nobody wants to go because not anybody knows kind of what's necessarily what to say. We all have the same feelings. We can all sense the corruption. We all know something needs to happen. We just don't know who's got what hand in whose cookie jar and all that stuff. And that's exactly the complicated political web that they want you to try to avoid. They want you guys going, oh my God, it's so complicated. I'm not even going to bother with it. And they're going to try to do that so they can stay in power, and things like John Homan can keep happening. So I'll ask you, people of the mic drop, if I were to record maybe a 3-minute message from Mollahan each week that the school board would have a school board meeting, and I put it on the mic drop for what Mike Mullihan would say at the school board meeting if he was allowed. Would you guys want that? And would you take it to the school board meeting? And you know what? Here's the funny thing too. Last I checked, you can speak however you want during your 3 minutes. And if that is, hello, my name is, and here's what I would like to say, and you click play on your phone, and it's 2.5 minutes of Mike Mullihan saying something that you feel you want to ask as well, they can't stop you. Because what are they going to say? Well, that's not, no, we're not going to allow that. You need to turn that off. You need to speak for yourself or you don't. The hell you do. The fact that you're only given 3 minutes to speak at a school board meeting that meets during times where most people working to begin with is already corrupt as snot. I was going to say something else, but I'm glad I censored myself. It's corrupt. And they do it under the guise of what? It's better for the school systems. It's better for the people to meet between 4 and 5 and do everything at the beginning. Why? Why is it? Why aren't more people asking, why are the school board meetings between 4 and 5? Why can't we do them when actual people can show up? I can guarantee you why. They keep moving it back there and voting it to do so because no one will show up to the school board meetings to actually say anything. It's what's very, very scary. So I'll tell you what, at the end of this one, when I am done and I've got it posted, I'm going to look to the comments and feel free. I mean, this just doesn't have to be a this type thing because I don't think there's another school board meeting for another week. But if you would like something that I could put into advocacy that would represent kind of a collective outcry from the gaslighted, manipulated, youth and or staff and or parents or teachers of Middlebury entitlement schools, if you would like something like that, I don't mind putting it together. And I would take a lot of what it is that you guys are saying on here because my story is already told. I have a 20-part entitlement saga series right now that detailed everything that I've done. This is to be a little bit more about what you guys would want. Hey, it's my brother. Everybody, that's Sean Mullihan. That's my dude. I call him blood, more than bro because we are actual blood. This dude would follow me into a dark alley and have my back every day of the week. Love this brother. He says that they do it to serve the teachers' schedules after school, I think, but serves toward the selfish goals of them and not the greater good of those who need change. It sounds like you're absolutely right, Sean. Looking at it from that perspective, it looks like they're trying to cater to serve the teachers' schedules after school. So when the teachers are done, they're done at 4. Bell rings at 3:45. Everybody's done at 4. Everybody goes home. People that have families need to go home and take care of. They have after-school activities they need to go and do. Everybody in Middlebury Community Schools knows that even though the bell rings at 3:45, you're probably not done with school until your after-school activity is done. And I know I led 3 or 4 of them. I led a pet band. I led an anime club. I led a tabletop gaming club. I mean, it doesn't matter. But if they're trying to push it to a point where they know everyone's busy so that you can't show up, I want you to think on that one, Mic Droppers. I want you to think, what would you say to that? Does that feel good to you? Does it resonate with you? Is it something you want to allow? If not, and you need someone to speak up for you, I can definitely do that. But I'm going to tell you guys something, and hopefully you're proud of me. I'm going to go ahead and close this one off now because in 3 minutes, I have my own therapy session with my therapist. And I am advocating and living self-care. Like, I believe everybody should be talking to a counselor, not just because I'm a counselor, but because I think everybody should have someone that they can talk to without anything other than just someone who's ready to listen. I've tried to be that for the counselor. I've tried to be that for the kids in any schools that I've worked with to the best of my ability. But when you're handcuffed by so much red tape and given so many administrative expectations, it impedes your ability to be naturally empathic and compassionate for the children in need, which is why I didn't do it. That's why I stopped doing all that extra stuff that they wanted me to do because it was taking me away from my kids. And after 2 or 3 years, they realized I wasn't going to do that. They tried to find ways to make it look like I wasn't doing my job so they could fire me. The problem was I was still doing my job that I was hired to do, and it was going awesomely. So water out of the bridge there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and take care of myself now. I'll probably be back on. I'm shooting for Thursday right now. We're going to go for a Thursday evening time. And again, I'm playing kind of loose with it right now. So just look for Thursday, probably not between 4 and 5. But thank you, Maddie. Thank you for showing up every time. And thank you for all of the information, all of the stories, all of the advocacy that you guys are pouring into me every single day. Every single text message I get, every single message I get on Facebook, I try to respond to. I'm getting a lot of them lately, so I'm falling a little bit behind, but it's okay. I'm still going to get to it. But I appreciate you guys so much. You are part of the reason that I'm still alive. And a big part of the reason I'm still alive is also Sean Malahan, so I'm glad he's in here. Love to you, bro. Love to all my kids. This is Mike Malahan from the Mic Drop, and we out.